got the engine a little bit torn down. A couple things needed to come off before we go ahead and put it in. The first thing would be the exhaust manifolds. We had a broken one, but all the bolts came out. Everything looks fairly decent. Same with the other side. Pop those out. I also popped all the spark plugs out. And you know what? They looked just like I expected them to. They're old, they're used, but they're not necessarily, you know, there's no oil. It's mostly just, you know, running rich. And worn out plugs. The other side's the same, so I'm not worried about it. But I did get a surprise when I took these valve covers off. So first, we had reusable gaskets, which is nice, but also underneath here looks really nice. They're steel heads, they're not aluminum, but you know, I don't see any issues with any of the rocker arms or anything like that, and it's nice and clean. So it's, maybe this engine has been redone. I do know that the stamp pad on the front, let me show that to you, is bare. So what that tells me is it probably was decked at one point and there's no numbers left. Anyway, this side looks just the same, looks really good. So what I'm gonna do is, I was gonna put a different intake on it, but I'm worried about hood clearance. I'm worried about being able to shut the hood. The last thing I wanna do is get a whole other hood for the car. So we're just gonna go with this. I'm just gonna spray bomb it real quick. I got it as clean as I can. I might go over it one more time, and then we're going to clean the valve covers up, maybe clean this aluminum water pump up, and it should be ready to go back in the car. All right, I used the tail end of a can of silver engine paint that I had. It looks pretty good. I mean, it won't last probably, but you know, it'll look better than it did. Anything's better than what it was, and in reality, and the important part is that it mechanically runs well. If somebody wants to change this up and, you know, repaint, put a new intake on it, that's fine. I'm not gonna spend the time to make it look perfect if somebody's gonna put a high rise on it, you know, next week. So here is the victim for replacement. So I think this was the original motor, maybe. The problem is you have this little stamp pad in here and the VIN is on it. I wish I could show it to you, but it's like super homemade. Like you can tell the numbers were stamped one at a time, and it's like, it might have been, there's no way of knowing now, so who knows. I don't think it matters in a 79, but you know how YouTube comments go, there's always one guy that's like, oh, you took the numbers matching engine out. Well, we'll never know. But anyway, this engine, I did everything. I did 3 carburetors, I did ignition tune-up, I did timing, I did valve adjustments, and I could just never get it to run right. And I think it boils down to low compression. I did a compression test and the numbers were all over, and it's like, you know what? I'm done messing with it, so we're just gonna take it out, put a new one in. So I know this one runs well, and it'll fit just fine in here. All right, we are making some progress. So pretty much everything on the top of the engine is unhooked. Carburetor, distributor, water hoses, AC compressor, alternator, power steering pump, spark plugs, headers, etc. Let's see if I can't get a better view of that number for you guys. Or I should just wait until I have it off the car, but now we're going to raise the car in the air and we're going to disconnect the starter, the fuel pump, the motor mounts, and transmission. Basically is where we're at. We probably shouldn't forget to unhook that, because that will cause an issue when we try to take the engine out. I'm going to try to take just the engine out. Alright, here underneath should be fairly simple. We have to remove oil pressure sender. I have to figure out if these headers will clear the engine. We'll see. Drain the oil, undo this cover, undo the bolts for the flex plate, starter, and then transmission bolts, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll come out. Yeah. Hopefully, I need help getting this hood off, but other than that, Oh, and motor mount bolts. Did I say that? I don't remember if I did. Whew, it's been a bit of work, but we're finally ready. I did have to take the headers off. I wasn't planning on it, but luckily, you know, collector gaskets aren't that expensive. It'll just make it so much easier to take everything in and out without having to squeeze it out of there. But I'll tell you what, this engine has been leaking for a long time. Lots of oil everywhere. Luckily, the one I'm putting in doesn't seem to leak the same. Last thing we need to do is 2 bolts for the fuel pump, and there's 2 bolts up top for the transmission bell housing. Then I think I have everything done. I feel like I always miss one tiny thing, but this time I'm hoping I'm good. So let's let the car down. So the last thing I had to do was the fuel pump, and this had an electric fuel pump on it, if you remember from the video, so I have to convert it back to a manual. But check this out. I've never seen this before. So this is the rod out of the replacement engine, but this is the rod out of this engine. Does it look odd to you? Look at that. I've never seen a fuel pump rod bent like that. I mean, what in the world? To make that do that? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's the right fuel pump. So I don't know what the deal is. That's just bizarre to me. Have you guys ever seen anything like that? I've never taken just the engine out on the lift. This is new for me. But we got the jack holding up the transmission and lift the engine up and out. It should pretty much come straight up about an inch or two, slide forward and then out. We'll see. next day and we're ready to fire this up. So we have the fan on, the belt, the alternator, everything's all attached. The spark plug wires are just kind of laying there. I eventually might route them a little bit nicer, but it's one of those universal kits that really doesn't fit. But we're gonna see how she runs and how she sounds. All right, all primed up. Definitely have exhaust leaks down here at the collector right there.